Hey everyone, it's your friend Jeremy. How you doing today? Well, just testing this out, doing some videos on different platforms. Wanted to talk about the homeless situation in San Francisco. Excuse me, I'm drinking this delicious Bang energy drink here and maybe a little gassy. But I've been seeing a lot of videos going around online talking about, oh no, San Francisco is like teetering on the verge of destruction. It's so many homeless people and it's like a homeless apocalypse and so on and so forth. But I've been living here for about 15 years. Done many jobs, lived in many neighborhoods. I've lived in the Mission, I've lived in Hunters Point, I've lived in North Beach, Chinatown, pretty much everywhere Excelsior. I've been around the avenues, which is kind of going toward Ocean Beach, near the Golden Gate Park area, kind of near where I currently live. Um, and I just wanted to say that a lot of the things you see on the television or sorry, on the internet, they're complete bullshit. You know, yes, there is a huge homeless problem here. But it's not all so different from other cities. The difference here, I would say, is that because San Francisco is only 7 miles by 7 miles, it's a much smaller kind of place for a big city to be. So a lot of, when there's an issue, like, I think there's about 45,000 people who are unhoused, who are on the street. It's going to be in your face more than it would be somewhere maybe like Chicago, or Phoenix, where it's a lot bigger area. Um, but I've been working here in the city as a social worker on and off for the last couple of years. And I've worked specifically with the Rapid Rehousing Program, which is a program from the government, federal government, to help get people off the streets. I've worked with that program. I work with a few other programs. Um, I would say the biggest barrier to getting people off the street is the mere fact that people do not want to have homeless neighbors. Yeah, I said it. People don't want to have homeless neighbors. And what I mean by that is people don't like the idea of having homeless shelters and safe injection sites in their neighborhood. They don't like it. They're not down with it. And B, they don't like the idea of someone having like Section 8 style or subsidized housing um, in their unit or as their neighbor, as their roommate. There's a lot of this housing discrimination that happens here in San Francisco. On top of that, the city and the county of San Francisco do not make it easy. They think they're making it easy, but they're not making it easy. They've actually made a huge mess of the homeless services here. So basically, it used to be there was different nonprofits, and they had their own way of helping people. Some were more effective than others, but you used to be able to walk into certain nonprofits, like the one I used to work at, which I'm not going to name, but you used to be able to walk up by yourself, meet someone like me who's a case manager, social worker, get evaluated, and get put into a program. This is how the rapid rehousing program used to work. So it was 2 years, up to 2 year subsidy of $2,000 a month. It started out like $1,500 a month, and they raised it to $2,000 a month for up to 2 years. Ideally, it's as long as the person needs it, within the frame of 2 years. Now the city and county has basically it has supplanted all of the independent nonprofit services. So you have to go through them to get any kind of help, to get any kind of housing. And it's ridiculous because a lot of people, you have to do a housing evaluation where the housing evaluation is done by AI. So they have a case manager in one of the city kind of drop-in spaces. You go there and you tell your life story to a dude or a person in front of a computer. And the person is only just there to input the info into the computer. There's like maybe 20 something questions. The person has to answer the questions. And the worse off they seem, the better theoretically the better it is, right? So if you're like have 5 kids, you're on the street, you've been selling your body and things like that, you're probably going to be up there in the needs list, or so you would think. But what's happened is that the person receives the shelter based on the score that's given from the AI. And why is this a problem? Well, it's a problem because a lot of people are not getting the services they need because they're not being ranked appropriately. I think you need a score of, I think it's 120 or 120 something to be able to qualify for like housing services, like meaningful housing services that are going to last you a while. And most people, I would say 70% of people who are homeless who take that, and I'm being generous, I'm being real generous, they don't they don't pass, they don't get the right score to be able to get placed into housing. And so the city has really taken to touting this as like a huge success program for them, having their they call it adult coordinated entry, where people can go and they can, get this housing evaluation or services and needs evaluation, and they're going to be all set. Well, that's not happening. So a lot of people are just staying in the shelters, they're getting evaluated, and they're not scoring high enough. And people get tired of staying in the shelter. People get tired of, for various reasons. I have been homeless once myself. It's not a pleasant experience generally staying in a shelter. Some are better than others, but at this point, especially after COVID, it's been very hellish for a lot of people. So a lot of people choose to just be on the streets, especially folks with substance abuse disorder. Despite San Francisco having a high amount of substance abusers, I don't like that term, but whatever, substance users, right? There's not many people who understand being compassionate toward that population. So a lot of places they'll have rules where it's like not really accommodating to the situation that a substance user find themselves in terms of like the level of their addiction, their level of activity. A lot of people, they're not going to want to sit in a hotel room or in their bunk for all day. They have their adults, they have lives, they want to get out and do things, you know and a lot of these homeless shelters, you have to be indoors by a certain time. A lot of them, especially some of the ones for youth, they don't even want you to work, or they make it difficult for you to work while you're there. I remember had this experience personally. I stayed in a youth shelter many years ago, and it was hell to try to even just go to work. I had to like really negotiate with the people there, and most people weren't allowed to go to work. So you're just kind of caught in this cycle of kind of, I guess, lightweight being exploited, because they get their funding based on the number of beds they have and how many people are staying there. But then you get people who have more complex issues and they can't handle them, and the people end up on the street. There's also no safe injection sites or safe usage sites. And I know those are like super controversial to people. People think it's very controversial to have a safe, clean place where people can do drugs. But I'm telling you, nothing is going to get better in this city until they open at least 6 of those places. I don't think there's even one now. There's been many attempts to get them, but Gavin Newsom and the mayor always seem to screw it up. They were going to open one and then they got it shut down because there's a lot of pushback on it. And then there's been a kind of reversal on the harm reduction philosophy on the part of the city, right? So they have abandoned this idea that people need clean spaces to be able to safely consume drugs. They need to have access to drugs that have been tested, because at the end of the day, you're not going to make someone do what they don't want to do. You're not going to make people who are doing drugs to either cope with their situation mentally or physically, you're not going to make them stop overnight. And so it's best to have something where have clean access and are able to do their drug of choice in a clean environment, but they're not hurting themselves and not hurting other people. But people here, despite San Francisco having a reputation for being very liberal, they're not down for that. So unfortunately, a lot of people die on the street like animals, and it's extremely sad. I've had many clients who passed away. I know many people who passed away from overdoses, and these things can all be prevented. And over the coming weeks, I will go into more detail about specifically what things I think can help. And I'm curious as to if you live in San Francisco or live in a city like San Francisco, what do you think is the solution? Um, and if, what do you think can be done? I think it's opening up the housing, vacant housing, and making sure people are guaranteed a unit that's corresponds to their needs and corresponds to what they have to have. And I think it also you need to open safe injection sites and make sure that people can use their substance of choice in a comfortable, clean, almost medical setting where they're going to be taken care of. But anyway, that's enough of me. What do you think? Leave your opinion down in the comments, and I will try to look through them and respond as I can. All right. Happy Friday. Ciao.